sirs and young squires, let us go forth and let the merriment begin. But first, the song of our country. Hit it! Might. Who here is ready to prove your fortitude? And who here is ready to test your courage and sanity at the wall of death? That was paltry and pathetic at best. Let's try that again. Who here is ready to test your courage and sanity at the wall of death? That's better. May your tribulations be few. May your testing be triumphant. Come forth and have a glorious time. Thank you.
We're gonna all be together and we're gonna make our rounds. See which truck's gonna win these classes.
Beautiful. Come on, guys. You gotta have this bad boy sitting your shelf. Look at these bumpers. If you guys have not stopped in and actually take a look at this thing, this is awesome right here. Stop by.
Well, hello there, friends and RC family. My name is Alec from High Noon Hobbies, and if you're new to this channel, I very much appreciate you checking it out. I hope that you'll stick around, watch at least this video, see if this content seems worth your while, and consider subscribing, so that then I can say to you, if you aren't new here, welcome back to yet another relaxed, not so relaxed this time, Sunday upload. That's because this time we are in part 4, the final day of the Proline By The Fire / Trail Hero, but mostly Proline By The Fire 2022 series with the SLUT Crawling crew assembled from all over Utah to come together to Apple Valley, California, Horseman Center Park, where we took over the park for a few days and just, well, we ran wild with little scale trucks, and it was a dang good time. But this, my friends, this is quite the behemoth of a video. We have a lot to take a look at this time, so we're just jumping straight into it. This was the final day, Saturday, of Proline By The Fire, and if you're unfamiliar with the event schedule, the first day, Friday, of Proline, the actual event itself. Now, that being said, I will mention that we started this series on Wednesday, at least. In terms of real-time filming, we started this series on Wednesday in Sand Hollow for Trail Hero 2022, hanging out with Logan, or West Desert Wheeler, in his native stomping grounds, and a few other Southerners just hitting some hard lines before we headed down here to California on Thursday, which was actually a day before the event itself began. One thing that we found out, and something that maybe I can share with you, is that if you are looking to get a spot where you want one at Proline By The Fire 2022 in terms of where your camp is set up, it's probably a good idea to consider showing up there early. We showed up there on Thursday as early as we could in the morning, and the camps were already starting to fill up, so definitely something to take into consideration. That being said, there were plenty of camps to go around, so as long as you don't really care where you were camping, it didn't matter too much. We had a spot for everyone. That being said, we came down on Thursday. We got ourselves our spot. We kind of hung out, saw the events beginning to pop up, or not events rather, but tents, and kind of the event coordinators started putting stuff together on Thursday. Then Friday was the first real day of the event, and that was basically just a few events. So if you'll remember from part 3 of this series, we took a look at Friday, and whoa, that is a rear wheel steer SCX6. Man, I didn't even notice that when I was filming it. How cool is that? But I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is the actual scale truck show that we are taking a look at right now, that has happening on Saturday. Okay, I'm getting super derailed. So on Friday, it was just a few events. We had the Scale Ultra, obviously, that we participated in. We had the Ultra 4 Hot Lap, as well as a few other smaller events, but the main event, the main portion of the event, is happening today. And today being the day that you're looking at, not the day that you're watching this, but that is Saturday. So this is a big day for events here at Proline By The Fire 2022. Started off first thing in the morning with this scale truck show. There were several categories that you could compete in for the scale truck show, or several categories that they gave awards out to. But right now we are just taking a look at the whole lineup, and you can see there is a lot of solid competition out here for this scale truck expo. If you are looking to compete in this next year or in future years, definitely got to bring your A game, because all of these guys certainly are. There were a lot of incredible rigs out here, and I was really, really impressed with how many amazing builds there were. But that's not the only thing that was happening on Saturday. Obviously, as I mentioned, Saturday being the busiest day, we just started out with the Scale Truck Expo, and then the SLUT Crawling crew headed on to this area over here for the 10-gate competition. And I want to give a huge shout out to Elite Comps for putting on this awesome competition, as well as Shift RC and Visio for supplying some of the prizes that went along with it, as well as I believe helping with some of the coordination. But we really enjoyed this 10-gate competition, and now I hope that you guys enjoy watching this along with me. Now, I'm not going to be including the scores on this particular comp, as well as a timer, just because I didn't set this comp up, so I'm not exactly sure what they did in terms of scores, and I'm also not sure exactly what they did in terms of time. I can only tell you that these drivers were definitely cutting it tight on time, and these are some really high-level drivers, so it obviously was maybe a bit of a tighter timetable than we typically oh wow, that was a tongue twister, but it definitely a tighter timetable than we often use here for our own competitions in Utah. That being said, Elite Comps did a great job of putting together this 10-gate competition. There were 2 different categories that you could enter. I found it very interesting the way that they set up their categories. Oftentimes, the way that I've seen it in the past is setting up courses, or setting up courses based on class. So you'll have a class 1 course, a class 2 course, and a class 3 course. Usually, and Cameron just barely nails that descent on gate 3. Definitely a very tough one. Headed into gate 4 now, but typically we'll use SORCA rules or something like that to set up classes, and that will be the different categories of driving that you can participate in a 10-gate comp. At least when we put them on, that's usually what we do. That being said, that's not what Elite Comps did here. They actually, and I found this an intriguing way to do it, and might consider doing this in the future, but they set it up into an amateur, or kind of a ready to run, and a pro class. And the courses, the amateur course obviously being quite a bit easier, and then this here, what we're taking a look at, is the pro class. There were also some additional kind of fun things that they put on for this pro class. I believe If you went through the entire course without hitting any single gate, you got a some sort of a bonus. And then also, if you were able to accomplish all of the bonuses, but if you hit any of the bonuses, then that eliminated your chance at this secondary prize. So I thought that was pretty interesting, pretty cool. I also believe, if I'm not mistaken, the way that they set it up was that if you were welcome to hit all of the bonuses that you want, even if you're running low on time. That being said, if you ended up running out of time and DNFing before gate 10, none of the bonuses counted for your score. So that's also another very interesting way to do it. Definitely made people think twice about hitting bonuses and how they spent their time on the course. As you can see, a bit of a not particularly difficult section to get through to here, and then we move on to this pretty nasty little descent through that V-notch, very reminiscent of one of the spots that we had at White Rocks, out at White Rocks. I don't know if you guys remember one of the northern qualifying rounds from this season's North versus South, but that gate there, that previous gate, was pretty similar looking to one of the gates that we had set up at White Rocks. I definitely enjoyed that one there. Cameron nailing that bonus. That one definitely made easier by the fact that he's running portals on his truck, which certainly helps clear over that little ridge that seemed to be catching a lot of people off guard. Now heading into this gate, really all about being squared up to it, and you can see Cameron realizes that as soon as he comes into the gate, he realizes he's not squared up enough to it, and so he decides to take a full reverse, really take full advantage of it as much as he could, and set himself up a little bit better. That being said, when he squared back up to it, I don't know if you caught that, I certainly did. When he squared back up to it, that driver's side rear tire was still quite a bit over in terms of the side hill there, and obviously we can see what ended up happening because of that. Cameron ended up driving up and over that ledge, which forced his driver's side rear into that lower cone. An unfortunate sequence of events for that gate number, I believe that's gate number 8. And then now we're headed into gate number 9 here. This one was a toasty one. I saw many people winching through this. As you can see, the main climbing section of it is almost unclimbable. I mean, if we're taking a look here at one of Cameron's rigs, and everyone here that's been on the channel for a little while is familiar with the fact that Cameron makes some of the most capable rigs out there. He really spends a lot of time tuning his rigs and making them as capable as he possibly can. He also spends a ton of time practicing his driving, and so as you can see, he barely catches that hook on gate 9 before he essentially runs out of time on that particular gate, trying to get there on time. And unfortunately, taking the time that he did, I believe. No, actually, I think that he still had time to go, and he was able to clear this gate 10. One of the runs that we're going to be looking at here soon. Man, and he cuts it close on that passenger side. But as you can see, he on that gate number 9, he was able to get that hook, but just barely. And a lot of the people that ended up going over that gate, if they didn't winch it, they ended up wasting so much time there that they ended up DNFing on the course, which was a major faux pas on this particular course, being that if you did that, you would lose any of the bonus points that you had accrued. Now, taking a closer look at this first gate here, I suppose technically gate number 2, but really the first technical gate. Also the bonus at the very start. Didn't see anyone hit the bonus, but in the next course run, we'll see someone attempt it again. Trevor here, of course, in High Noon Hobby fashion, I caught just a little bit late, but either way, nailing that gate number 2. That one was a very, very tough kind of gap that you had to cross over, and really the big thing about that gate number 2 was making sure that as you came across it, you didn't turn into the wall too soon. If you did turn into that wall on gate number 2 too soon, you'd end up actually driving your entire rear axle over, because that wall was such a steep embankment, and that would force your truck into that lower cone. Taking a look at gate number 4 here, after the steep descent that I very poorly did not capture on camera, we're seeing Trevor trying to float that driver's side front tire up and over that lower cone, but definitely a sketchy situation, so I think he takes the right move here and takes a winch. The penalty for winching was certainly not as severe as a gate, just as it should be in any competition, so when you're floating a tire like that and you think there's a possibility that it's going to come down on the gate, definitely better to take that winch and avoid those extra points. So Trevor pulls the winch a little bit early in my mind, but he's definitely planted there. As you can see when he's putting the winch back on, you can see the truck is very well planted at that point. So definitely not too early of a winch pull, but from my perspective when I was watching it in real time, I thought that might be a little bit early, but it turned out just fine for him. Now headed into gate number 5, you can see Trevor decides to skip the bonus that Cameron took a look at, but then also decided to skip. That's out on that ledge of a rock by the judge over there on the right-hand side just past Trevor. Now, gate number 5, really the doozy here was keeping your driver's side high enough on the wall, on the driver's side of the vehicle, to not end up with your rear passenger tire getting forced into that lower cone, as we can see what's happening here. Now, again, great job by Elite Comps setting these cones up, setting these gates up. I thought that a lot of these gates were really, really intriguing. They took me by surprise a lot of the time, where maybe it was something that didn't look all that nasty, but then once you got into it, the way that it forced your geometry to work, your steering geometry, the way that it forced your link geometry into certain positions, definitely made those gates action-packed even when they didn't look like it, which I definitely got to give them credit for that, because that does take some effort. Having set up as many 10-gate comps as I have and seen a whole variety of different gate options out there in different environments in Utah, I think that these were some really, really well-done gates. Trevor making that climb look super easy, doesn't even think about using the winch on that ascent, which honestly, it looks worse than it is. That was one of the ones that was a bit of the opposite. As long as you trusted that your truck wouldn't peel off the wall and you kept a good consistent throttle pressure up as you ascended up that wall, it didn't seem to be much of a problem at all for any of the drivers that I watched go through it. That being said, that is not the case for this gate that Trevor's headed through right now, but Trevor does manage to make it through without hitting either of the gates. Definitely one that you have to just stay super square on and make sure that you watch your throttle control, so that if you bump it at the wrong time, you could definitely end up catching just a little bit too much traction and forcing yourself up on the wall on the driver's side or down on the wall on the passenger side, and bad things would happen either way. Trevor again with portals, making this bonus look relatively easy, although he does start looking at it and saying to himself, or saying to all of us, like, oh man, I now understand why this started screwing up so many people. This is not as easy as it looked. That bonus was tough for sure, especially if you have smaller tires, or if you have just not quite the clearance of other trucks. Getting over that ridge in terms of your axle clearance, getting over that ridge definitely was tough. Headed into gate number 8 here, the steep descent with the nasty passenger climb that forces that driver's side rear tire into the lower cone, or at least it did for Cameron, but Trevor just nails the throttle there and uses some wheel speed to make sure to avoid that side hill throw. Now, Trevor going for a similar situation or a similar setup as Cameron, trying to get the hook on that front passenger so he can pull the rest of the vehicle up. Unfortunately, he's running out of time, and he knows he's running out of time, so he really, really needs to get up and through this gate, or at least nail it so he can get onto gate number 10. You can see he's really starting to run low on time, and you can see it in his movements. He's doing everything very, very quickly. Now, here is where I think the biggest mistake was. He actually does go to try to reconnect his winch here. I personally probably would have just let it dangle, or continued to suck the winch in as I came around this bend here. But unfortunately, he runs out of time just right there after winching up gate number 9. So that means that any of the bonus points that he accrued during that particular course are nulled out, which is very unfortunate. But now we're taking a look at Dustin D's company on Instagram. If you haven't checked out the products that Dustin makes, his little, they're not retention straps, but his little these bands, I definitely recommend you check them out. Again, they're not retention straps, but they help suck the suspension in. They still let it articulate fully because they are elastic, but they basically just control the let out of the suspension, which I think is really cool. And I've got them on my comp rig. I'm putting them on my Capra here very shortly. I think that they are an awesome product, and I definitely want to shout him out for that. Now, Dustin, he actually got the farthest through this bonus that I saw anyone get, but he decides it's too sketchy and bails out at the very last second. Now, definitely a respectable move. I personally, if I were that far through the bonus gate, I would have been fighting more to try to keep myself in the game there and try to get through that bonus. So very respectable that he was able to pull himself away from that, realize that he probably wasn't going to make it, and that if he didn't make it, it definitely wasn't going to be worth it. So because of that, I think that was a really good move. But I was a little bit sad that we didn't get to see anyone actually make it through that bonus. But Dustin making it the furthest way through, about halfway before bailing out, and making a clean exit from the bonus without getting any additional points on his score. Making it through there clean, and now heading on to the descent. Now, this has been throwing a lot of people off, mainly because it likes to toss your driver's side rear tire over to that side. But look at that, man. The throttle control, the slow descent, and Dustin's rig just absolutely planted through that descent. Very, very impressive, making it through nice and clean. Going into gate number 4 here. Now, gate number 4 looks like it's something you could square up to. But problem is the placement of that lower cone. As you can see there, it's just exactly in the way of where you need it to be. Unfortunately, Dustin tapping it kind of in the same way that I was just describing. Interestingly enough, I didn't know that was about to happen, but he tried to stay as square to it as he could. He was a bit too square to it. He should have come further up on that driver's side wall, and because he didn't, he ended up tapping that lower cone. Now, Dustin is going for the bonus here, or at least he's going to attempt to get as close to it as he can, see what it looks like. Got to give it a little bit of steering wiggle. You can see the judge there kind of coaching him through just a little bit. I did really appreciate that these judges, they, obviously it's a tight competition. There's lots of great drivers here, but they kept their spirits high. They made sure to treat every driver the same and give little tips and hints where they could or where they felt comfortable doing so. And I thought that they did a great job judging. So not only setting up the course, but I got to give Elite Comps some props for the actual running of the course itself. I thought that they did a great job there. Now, you can see there, Dustin actually laid on the throttle pretty hard, trying to clear the rear axle through that last gate there. I was surprised, and he even mentioned after this run that he was a little bit jumpy, and he was definitely experiencing that throughout his run. And I think that was one of those moments where there was just a bit of throttle jump, and it ended up almost being a bad deal for him, but he was able to pull it off there. Now, heading into the ascent, again, another one that you just have to trust that your truck is going to make it up and over, and it does. It grabs that hook with the driver front and ends up pulling himself right over. Dustin taking the long way around and heading all the way back over. Now we've got to either hit the bonus or hit gate number 7, but he goes for the bonus first, and he's taking a very interesting approach to the bonus gate here. Really approaching it from the outside, far to the passenger side, but he makes it look like a piece of cake, just stemming over that gap. I thought that was quite impressive. Now, the unfortunate part about the route that he just took is he's got to come back off this face, make an entire loop around, and then hit 7 just to have to make it back up onto that rock so he can come down gate 8 before he hits the gnarly gate number 9. So as you can see, squaring up to this gate number 7 here, through the crack, really trying to keep his throttle under control. You can see how close that driver gets to that lower cone the passenger tire gets to that, the front passenger gets to that lower cone. You can see him trying to wedge his way through it, and what an incredible save, just riding the crack out through the very bottom of that. Very impressive job, Dustin. I thought that the throttle control and the steering manipulation on that one was just impeccable. Now he's got to bypass this bonus gate without hitting the actual gate itself, get back up onto the rock, and come back down 8. So ideally, I think he probably would have done that gate sequence a little bit differently, probably 7 7 bonus 8 instead of bonus 7 8. But hey, what are you going to do? You can't make all the perfect decisions under pressure like this, and I think he still did a great job, and he stuck with his decision and pulled it off. So you got to give him credit where credit's due. Makes it through gate number 8 like a piece of cake, and then we've got to make a recovery, which he does flawlessly. Definitely great job there. That is something that I can't emphasize enough. If you are looking to be a great comp driver, one thing that everyone kind of forgets to practice is your recoveries. Make sure you're practicing your recoveries. Make sure you understand how the weight of your vehicle affects your recovery and how you're going to get back onto the rubber side down. Thank you, West Desert Wheeler, for that lovely catchphrase anytime you possibly can. Now, Cameron, actually, interestingly enough there, pulling the winch off, the Elite Comps guys mentioned that, and just ends up nailing the gate there so that he can get through that without DNFing on the course. But a great job there, Dustin. I can't remember. He may have DNF'd on that course. I'm not 100% certain. I'm going to have to go look back at the times again. But either way, I think that was a great job of driving. Now we are taking a look at Hayden from Happy Valley Crawlers running through the course here. And I will mention, I was just talking a moment ago about the fact that Cameron pulled the winch off of the stick there for Dustin's run, and that was to save him just that fraction of a second as he was running out of time on gate number 9. So when Dustin got to the top of that gate number 9, Cameron ended up pulling the winch off the stick. Now, something that we don't do for our comps, but Elite Comps does do, and we didn't know until after Cameron had done that, is they actually assign a penalty if the winch sticker touches the winch itself, right? So that means that the winch stick, the only job that the person with the winch stick has is to set up the winch stick and keep it steady. Besides that, they are not allowed to do anything to help the driver winching because they are the sticker, not the wincher. So that's verbatim what the Elite Comps guy said, and I found that quite interesting, but I actually think it's a really cool way to run it, a really cool way to make it a little bit more difficult for the driver and not give anyone any sort of biases if they've got someone that's winch sticking for them that really is on top of it versus someone who maybe is a little less on top of their winch sticking or winching game. So I thought that was a cool way to even it out, and that's another idea that we might consider using for future High Noon Hobby comps. I'm not sure. What do you guys think about that? Leave it in the comment section down below what you guys think about that. Hayden here getting off to a great start, actually, through gate number 1, 2, and 3. But gate number 4 here, been a doozy for everyone so far. No one's got through it particularly easily. Cameron made it look the easiest, but certainly not by any means easy. And then Hayden having to take a repo here to reset up and take another stab at the gate. He was pretty pinched up there, and so he's going to take a repo, which basically means they put you back to the last position, or the position you were at for the last gate, let you start from there, keep the time the same, so you take basically both a point and a time penalty. But either way, Hayden's going to try to use that reposition to get a better chance at making it through that gate. He decides the last second there that he's actually not going to. He's just going to take the gate out so that he can save his time for the rest of these difficult gates to come. Heading into gate number 5 here, definitely a doozy of a gate. You can see how much it throws his the center of gravity off there. You definitely have to be well dialed. Your rig has to be well dialed as to not flip over just in the initial portion of that gate, and then going through, as you can see, Hayden's tire just barely taps that lower cone, unfortunately making it so that he has to take that gate as a penalty. So 2 gate penalties so far. Now we're skipping the bonus just based on time itself, and so that we can spend our time making sure we get through these next gates cleanly. Hayden's got all the jitters out, and now we're going to just see what this truck can do, really let her eat, and see what type of hard lines he can get through here. So headed through gate number 6, you can see he's coming at it very low, and that is a good correction that he just made there. If he tried to wiggle his servo up and around to get the hook a little bit better, I think that his rear axle still would have been too far over, and so taking the difference in approach that he did there, definitely worth it. But you can see that is no joke in terms of the ascent itself. You really have to be angled correctly, and your truck has to be weighted correctly. But either way, as long as you stick out, you're going to see here in a minute, as long as you stick it out, the truck will find a way up. So well done, Hayden, there, sticking it out on gate number 6 there. Now you can see Dustin pointing to gate number 7, as well as the bonus on the other side of the rock, talking about how he went through, saying that he should probably come back around and square up for gate number 7 there, just to make sure that he doesn't dump himself into that passenger side cone on the lower side. Keeping a really high approach to this gate, I think a very, very good idea. Well done, Hayden, on that front, making sure that that rear axle stays as far to the driver's side as possible. But now you can see as he starts to wedge his way across, he actually starts pushing that rear axle too far to the driver's side. So he has to reassess and take another reverse here so he can get back through and not push that rear axle too far over. Now he still hasn't hit the gate, pulls himself back over, floats that rear passenger tire over that lower cone, and off to the races he is. Definitely a very, very well done gate there on Hayden's part. I think some excellent driving through there, and maybe just a tiny bit of luck. Gravity was playing on your side, but either way, I think it was a very, very good idea that you took that second reverse there, got yourself re-squared up to it, saw that rear axle was starting to push a little bit too far to the driver's side, and made that correction. That is the great driving that you did to make sure that you made it through that gate clean, and I think that you made the right call there, Hayden. So definitely a good one. Bonus, piece of cake. Now we're headed on to gate number 8 here, and I stopped paying attention for just a second, but again, he took another kind of loop around to make sure he was squared up to gate number 8, and now we got to climb that passenger side front up, get yourself up and over, and while he didn't necessarily do it gracefully, he did do it, and he didn't hit the gates, so well done, Hayden, on that front. Now we're going to try to get the hook here on gate number 9, see if we can do it without a winch, because Hayden doesn't actually have a winch on his truck, and take a look at that. Wow, Hayden, well done. I remember seeing this truck at the very beginning of the comp season, seeing all the trouble you were having with it, and how far you've come with your driving ability as well as your tuning ability on this truck. I think is quite well. It's nothing to take lightly. You definitely put a lot of time and a lot of effort into this rig, and I appreciate that. Now we're headed through the final gate there, making it through with a little bit, I think a couple seconds to spare, so well done, Hayden. And that was the last comp run of the day that I caught. So from there, what did we do? Well, we had plenty more to do. Proline By The Fire is full of really, really fun scale activities that we took the rest of the day to experience. You can see Cameron earning his, believe this was the troll toss goblin shoot. Yes, it was the goblin shoot. Troll toss. I just came up with that on the spot. I think that was pretty good. So this is the goblin shoot, and this was a pretty interesting activity. One thing I will say, I think that they didn't quite plan on the wear and tear that was going to be happening on some of these events throughout the day, particularly this one. So this, in concept, really cool, right? You know, you've got the truck, it pulls it, and then it releases this little tire, shoots it, and then you hit one of your goblins, and you get a little patch when you hit a goblin. But the quick release that was on that wire, or on the rope that they were using there, wasn't quite working, so they had to hand release it. Just took away a little bit from the magic, but I still thought it was a really fun event. Now this was one of my favorite events to watch personally. Watching the big bashers just throw themselves off of this incredibly large jump, and some failing to do so, which was even still funny in and of itself. But these guys tossing themselves off of this massive jump was incredible. Definitely a sight to behold. On that particular UDR, I don't know if you noticed, but at the very beginning, go back and watch it again, that UDR actually hit the lip of the jump because they didn't quite smooth it out enough, and I don't know if it broke some parts, but I'm going to guess it did because it smashed into that lip of that jump. But definitely enjoyed watching the bashers launch themselves several feet up into the air and 30 feet across the event space. That was pretty interesting. I haven't gotten into bashers yet. yet. I'm definitely into watching them. I thought that I think they're really cool to watch, but I haven't gotten into them yet. So to get to watch them in person, I was definitely more inspired to throw a basher together just to be able to jump it off of stuff like that. You can see the castle creep here is some teeter-totters that you got to make it over. And while T's very heavy rig made it up and over the teeter-totter without a problem, the brand new High Noon Hobby Mog, Heyo, is having a bit more trouble here. And I don't know if it's the Traxxas Canyon Trail stock tires that I have on here, or if it's the fact that the rig itself weighs like 3.5 pounds. But either way, definitely had a hard time on that first teeter-totter. So we bypassed the first teeter-totter and came out to this second teeter-totter here, which I actually thought was really cool, kind of a multi-piece teeter-totter that I found quite interesting and entertaining. Kind of similar to, if you remember, in the last part of this, where we were taking a look at or I guess 2 parts ago, part 2, when we were taking a look at that little bobbly block setup. That was super hilarious, and I thought that teeter-totter kind of had a similar vibe to it. Just an interesting little feature. Very cool. Now, one of the most popular events at Proline by the Fire, obviously, was the table duels, or the duel wars here, and it was definitely interesting to see all these different rigs go at it head to head. I personally didn't want to throw my rig up on the duel table because I didn't want it to get destroyed. I had the High Noon Mog with me, and I didn't want to toss it up there because, as I just mentioned, it's about 3.5 pounds, so it doesn't weigh much. So I let all the heavyweights go at it, and now we get to enjoy the heavyweights, having a little duel. You can see Sons of Crawl actually put his old Phoenix body back on there so that he could bash it a little bit on the Duel Wars table. I thought that was a respectable choice, keeping the Shelf Queen pretty while also still making sure that you put your fight on the table, which is definitely a valiant effort and very respectable. So good job, Sons of Crawl. Now, this I thought was quite interesting. They actually had like live night fighting at Proline by the Fire 2022. Definitely not something I expected. I saw on the event, I'm going to take a look at it right now, the program when we got it, there was a Knights Battle show on Saturday at 5:30, and boy, were they not kidding. These guys had full-on swords and hammers and all sorts of real weapons, and they were just beating the shit out of each other. So, yeah. Good job, Proline. Definitely an unexpected twist to the evening, and one that I think all of us were pretty down with by the end of watching it. I think there were definitely some skeptics, myself included, at the beginning of it, but by the end there, definitely not a skeptic. Those were some badass fights. So thanks, Proline. But yeah, that was the raffle, the battle show, the Knights battle, and then from there we just did some more night crawling. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have already seen this clip, but this is Dustin, or D's company, taking one of the lucky bastard, but one of the West Desert Wheeler SCX6s out for a spin. Now, Logan was not with us during the Proline by the Fire event itself, but he was kind enough to lend Dustin and the SLUT Crawlers this SCX6, which I thought was really, really cool of Logan. Appreciate you doing that, and we had a really fun time with it, and sorry, we probably owe you a new body. But no, you know what? I've seen this thing fall off of the cliffs in Sand Hollow that it's fallen off of. We haven't done anything to this that you haven't already done. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you this time. I hope that you enjoyed it. We will see you on the next upload. And guys, Proline by the Fire next year. Who's going? Yeah, I definitely am.